Kick it off now.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Joe Haggerty. I'm the CEO of the Alexandria Chamber of Commerce. We're glad to have you with us this morning. We have a great partnership with the United States Senate Federal Credit Union, and we're working with them this morning to help everybody be ready to continue to move forward. A few words about the Chamber. Our mission: supporting businesses and cultivating community. So we've shifted to do a lot of virtual webinars. We've done over 30 in the last few months. We've had almost 1,500 people on our webinars. So we continue to get information out there that we believe can help businesses, and that's what we're doing this morning. We also post information on a regular basis, and we've been doing a lot of networking for and with our members. I want you all to know we will be recording this one, and it will be posted on our website. And I think the United States Senate Federal Credit Union may have it on their website soon, so many other people will view it and will hear the discussion. So we, by the way, the United States Federal Credit Union is renovating a property here in Alexandria, and they'll be moving into it next year. We were there for their ribbon cutting. And they broke down some walls that day. We all had a great time. We're really excited about them moving into the new building, and want to work with them on all kinds of events. They've been very supportive in terms of their staff and their leadership, supporting the Chamber, coming to events, and meeting lots of new people. So right now, I'm really happy to introduce Dennis O'Donovan, Vice President, Business Development with the United States Senate Federal Credit Union. And I've already told him that my mother's maiden name was Donovan. So this is going to be a good one. So Dennis, you're on.
Okay, thank you, Joe, very much. Listen, I want to take just a few minutes to thank everybody for joining us today. And I want to particularly give some acknowledgments. Of course, you've heard from Joe, the CEO of the Alexandria Chamber of Commerce. I had the pleasure of meeting Joe several times at our ribbon cutting and at a couple other chamber events that we were working collaboratively with. And, Joe does a great job, and I want to thank him for his support for this presentation. There are two individuals I really want to recognize, and that's Maria Chirochi and Carrie Lazar. Maria is the Chief Operating Officer and Vice President of Public Policy with the Alexandria Chamber of Commerce, and Carrie Lazar is our Membership Development Representative. Both of these young ladies did an outstanding job, to set something like this up in this kind of environment that we're living in, the new COVID age. They did a terrific job, and I want to thank them personally for all the hard work and everything it takes to put one of these things on. And I also want to acknowledge a colleague and a friend is Arthur Green, is our marketing. Arthur does a fabulous job for us at the credit union, and is working very closely with the chamber on a number of events. And I also want to recognize James Ruley, our Vice President of Business Development. I work very closely with both of these gentlemen, on the business side. So I always call us a three-headed dragon. It's Arthur, James, and me. So, but anyway, so I'm really, really grateful that they can be on the call as well. I wanted to also acknowledge Blake Fellow. Blake is going to be our speaker and presenter today, and I had the pleasure of meeting Blake probably close to a year ago when we started having conversations with Fellows Financial Group about a partnership that we have with the credit union. And, it became very clear to all of us after we had several meetings with Blake of the value he and his firm could bring to our organization and the unique solutions and offerings that he has, not only for individuals, but specifically for business. A little bit about Blake. He's the president and advisor of Fellows Financial Group. It's located in the greater Washington, D.C. metropolitan region. And he's focused on serving the needs of business owners as well as individuals. Fellows provides comprehensive wealth management solutions to business owners and individuals, life insurance, health insurance, long-term care, 401k plans, IRAs, financial planning. For almost 20 years, Blake has been a trusted advisor planner and an advocate for entrepreneurs, business owners, and individuals seeking personal service and a deeper knowledge of their financial situation. Blake is a Loudoun County native and a graduate of James Madison University. He has worked very hard to position fellows to be a full-service planning, investment, insurance resource to his clients. And he believes in taking care of and treating everyone he works with the same way he wanted to be taken care of himself. And so I just want to say I really, can't say enough about Blake and some of the things that he can offer. Things like business continuity plans, business succession plans. I'm just going off, but I clearly saw what separates Blake from some of the other financial investment firms is he's hyper-focused on the business side, which really stuck out to us. He can do everything for individuals as well, but his expertise in the business area, I think, is what separates him from other investment firms. So I really I appreciate his time today. Appreciate him taking the time to be our speaker and presenter today. And Blake, I'm going to turn it over to you. And thank you for doing this. And it's all yours.
Hey, Dennis, just before Blake begins, can I say one more thing?
Sure.
I just want to remind everybody, again, that we are recording this session, but also that at the end of the session, Carrie will be drawing some restaurant cards for people.
Great.
From Chadwick's, from Pork Barrel, and from Cafe 44, some of our great restaurants.
Great.
And I want to tell Blake, my son is a junior at James Madison.
All right.
Go Blake.
Yeah, that's good.
Go Dukes.
And I have a niece there as well, Joe. So I really appreciate that, Joe. And so Blake, it's all yours. And thanks for doing this, Blake.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And thank you, Dennis. That took care of most of my introduction, so that was perfect. Usually something like this would be done in person, so I appreciate everybody over the Zoom here. This is actually my first presentation over Zoom to a large group, so I hope everybody can hear me okay. Given the introduction Dennis gave, you have a kind of an idea of what we do. I thought I'd share just a minute. In 20 years in doing this, in working with businesses on their investments, their insurance, their planning, succession planning, I found out, it became pretty apparent that we specialize in the areas that no one really wants to talk about. We specialize in the areas that it's very easy to push to the back burner. And one of those areas is the topic we're talking about today, which is succession planning for the small business owner. And I get it. I mean, everybody these days, we're all very busy. We have a list, typically you have a list that you start Monday morning with a list of 10 things you'd like to get accomplished that day. And even on your drive into work, when you used to go to work, and some of us still do, and some people are at home, but you still have a list, right? And that list, by 8 a.m. you get your first call that takes you this direction. And then by mid-morning, you got a call that takes you in this direction. Then a fire goes off around lunch. And the next thing you know, it's 7:30, 8 p.m. You maybe got one or two things off your list. You're so tired, you're just lucky enough to get time to spend a little bit of time with your family before you go to sleep, wake up next morning, do it all over again. So what happens is the list keeps getting kicked down the road next day, next week, next month, next year, next week, next month, next year, until, in business owners, it's not that they're not aware that succession planning is out there. They know they need to do it. It's not a priority because of all the fires that pop up all day. You got to deal with the fire that's in front of you. And so it's very easy to push to the back burner until, boom, a bomb goes off of some sort. And all of a sudden you're forced to deal with it. And that's the worst time to be dealing with this. So we're going to put up the slideshow now. And when that bomb goes off, it's stop everything. Okay. How much is this going to cost us? Will our employees stay with us? Are my bankers going to pull my line of credit? Are our clients going to leave us? Is my business going to survive this? And if you get to that point, it just becomes degrees of losing. And we call that the reactive plan. And the reactive plan is, and some of this is going to get dry. I'm going to read some statistics for everybody. But the reactive plan, that's what most people have. And it's really just a recipe for disaster and failure and basically blowing up families. I see it all the time, unfortunately. So what we're going to talk about today is the proactive plan. And Today is really just to be informational. It's to help get you have a little bit better grasp of proactive succession planning for the business owner. And hopefully you'll be able to take a few valuable tidbits out of today's talk. And then I think that probably the most valuable part might be the question and answer at the end. So if you have questions, please type them in, let us know them, and then we'll address those at the end. And I think that might be one of the best times spent. Okay, so on to the statistics part. There are roughly 26 million small businesses in the U.S., and small businesses really described as 500 employees or less. And these businesses can range from self-employed professionals to medium-sized firms to larger manufacturing firms. Some of these small businesses employ 55% of all U.S. workers, across the country. Their success drives America's success. So, more than half of today's small business owners are 50 and older. 23% of small business owners plan to sell or transfer the business in the next 3 to 5 years, which I found interesting. But only 38% of all formal business succession plans, ones that are written down, only 38% have them, and most of those folks are younger business owners. And only 40% of that group has what's called a funded purchase obligation, which means they actually have the plan for where the money is going to come from when it's time to purchase the business. That's usually the big question. So today we're going to talk about what is a succession plan, what things should you consider, and how do you get started. All right, so here's our agenda. First, we're going to go over some common misconceptions about succession planning that we see every day. Then we'll review various key questions to ask yourself, when designing your plan. Every business situation is different, and you will have some goals and expectations that will be unique to your situation. There's no question about that. Every business is unique. Then we will dive into some options and strategies that business owners use to accomplish their goals and objectives. With each decision or indecision comes tax consequences. So we'll do just a high-level review of tax impacts on different strategies you can use. And lastly, we'll end the program with some next steps and also the questions and answers. For most business owners, the business is not only the primary source of household income, or it's also their single largest asset. And that goes for most businesses. And planning for something so important as succession is critical. So what is succession? What is a succession plan? Put simply, it's the process of determining how you're going to transfer your business ownership and transition out of the business management role, while maximizing personal financial security at the same time. But like most things that are important, it's really not that easy to get a good plan in place. It's quite complicated, but needs to be addressed. And the more proactive you are with that, the better chance of success you have. And why bother with business succession planning? There are several reasons. It can create an orderly transition plan, both for ownership as well as management. A poor management transition plan can have a negative impact on business results, and in some cases can result in a business failure. It minimizes potential conflicts between heirs and other business partners. If you hope to have your business continue by one or more of your family members, you will need to coordinate your succession plan with your estate plan. It will also be important to consider the tax consequences of all this. Or perhaps your plan involves a new or existing business partner. It is best to solve potential problems now while everyone is agreeable, and before one of those bombs goes off that we discussed earlier. So a proactive succession plan it provides economic support for you and your family. The value of your business may represent a substantial source of income in retirement. Sometimes that's, for a lot of people, that's all of their income in retirement outside of Social Security. But that needs to be balanced with the goal of a smooth and orderly transition. So what about your spouse or loved ones that are dependent on the income if something happens to you? We need to consider a variety of contingencies for things a lot of folks don't want to think about. And last but not least, let's try to minimize tax liability and erosion of business value with proper planning. Such tax costs can be greatly reduced. We'll cover some of those strategies in a little bit. An event such as death or disability if you or a business partner could lead to business chaos without proper planning and financial protection. And advanced planning can help ensure that you, your family, and your business are all properly protected. So let's start with reviewing some common misconceptions around business succession planning. Number one, we have plenty of time to plan. There's a common thought among business owners that the planning can wait until they are ready to exit. And that puts the financial well-being of the business owner, the family, the business itself, all the employees in jeopardy. And we discussed a little bit about that before in the intro. Number two, it's easier to just sell the business. While that sounds like an easy solution, it is often difficult to find a willing buyer for the business. And since many businesses owners tie, emotions to their baby, another child that they have built from the ground up, they may overestimate its value to someone else. It depends a great deal on timing, the health of the business, the economy at that time, how dependent its success is on the current owner's involvement, and the particular industry. Number three, my successor will be ready when I'm ready. Handing the business to someone else to run is always difficult, but the odds of success go up exponentially with preparing the successor management team ahead of time. Having a plan to strategically hand over the torch makes it seamless to the business, the employees, and the customers. Number four, fair means equal when passing my business. This is probably one of the most common misconceptions. It is also one of the biggest causes of significant family disharmony. Number five, giving up ownership means that I will lose control and or my income, which is another common fear that prevents business owners from taking action. This is probably one of the biggest. It's the easiest way to keep kicking the can down the road, especially if this is where all your income comes from. Ownership can easily be separated from control and also from cash flow. In addition, we may be able to implement strategies to recharacterize the nature of income to the business owner, taking it from ordinary income to capital gains, making it a better tax situation. Okay, so we've covered why a business needs a succession plan, some of the reasons, and we've discussed some of the common misconceptions that stop business owners from creating a plan. Now let's cover some key questions for you to ask yourself. The most important place to start is, what's my business value? That will set the stage for basically all the planning we do. I find that business owners either vastly underestimate or overestimate the true value of their business. And value should be determined objectively. Asking the question, what would an unrelated buyer pay for your business? And then you have to ask yourself, what am I willing to sell it for? And you got to find out what's reality. The next question is, do I have a written plan in place now? I have a lot of stories about this. I've actually seen a written succession plan on a napkin before. That's true. If so, what is your plan? If you do have one, what does it say? And when was the last time you looked at it? Does it need the dust blown off of it? Sometimes, there's language embedded in your operating agreement that talks about business succession, and most people haven't seen that, haven't even looked at that since they created it. And that's very common. I mean, you're not alone if that's you. The next question to consider is, when do I plan to exit? And there really is no right answer to this. It's only what is right for you. This question will give you a timeline, at least something to work towards in case something happens that you weren't expecting. As I mentioned earlier, 1 in 4 business owners plan to exit their business in the next 3 to 5 years, but only a few have actually planned for that event. So it's going to be interesting in the next 3 to 5 years. And all business owners will exit their business one day. It's either going to be voluntarily or involuntarily. And like we talked about earlier, reactive versus proactive. The proactive plan will keep it in your control. So what if you're forced to exit because of disability? What impact would that have on day-to-day success of the business? What kind of financial drain would that be on the business if you can't provide the value while you're still taking the paycheck to provide for your family? Something were to happen today, death or disability, if you identified the person who could successfully step in to keep things going, what would they need? What do your business partners, if any, think? Is everyone on the same page? Do you each want the same things, or are they going to run the business in a totally different manner, take advantage of their opportunity? Lastly, what do you need for the family if something happens to you? Do you want to pass the business itself to your heirs? Or do you simply want your family to inherit the value you've built? Do you even have the type of business that can be passed on, or is it completely dependent on your expertise? So once you have a good idea of your own situation, your wants and your needs, and it's time to consider the various ways to accomplish your goals. And this relates to the how, the when, and the who. If you plan to pass the business itself to one or more family members, then you will need to coordinate the succession plan, with your estate plan. After all, your business is just one of your assets to pass to family, just like real estate or anything else. Although it's often the largest and most lucrative asset you will own, how and when you transfer the business to family depends on a host of factors that are unique to your situation. Often we see the business interests pass at death, just like other assets, by the terms of your will or revocable trust. You can also pass some or all of your business interests while you are alive, done with a gift to family. It's also important to remember that sometimes the best outcome is achieved with a combination of these strategies. For example, you may want to pass the torch to your children who work in the business, but gifting it to them outright means you would no longer receive the income you get as an owner. For example, consider, one idea you could think of is consider selling some portion of the business, some of the stock, in exchange for a note receivable. Now they use their ownership profits to pay off the note to you, providing you with the income you need in retirement. Any remaining interest that you still hold on to can pass at your death by will or revocable trust. If you transfer this business at death, the plan should consider how to do this equitably. Perhaps you have some children who are actively engaged in the business and others that aren't. Without a plan, the business would pass equally to all children, regardless of their involvement. And we see this break up families all the time. Proactive planning is crucial and can significantly help with this. One of our more common scenarios involves succession planning for non-family business transfers. In many of those cases, we see multiple owners of the business. And how do you ensure that your partner gets your portion of the business and vice versa? Well, with a written buy-sell agreement, typically. And that is when parties agree ahead of time what rights and obligations each has when a triggering event takes place, usually death, disability, retirement, etc. Sometimes the business is best transferred by selling to a local competitor, if possible. For example, a dentist office or a small accounting practice. The agreement between competitors works in much the same way as between business partners. Rights and responsibilities are clearly spelled out to protect both parties by way of that buy-sell agreement. And lastly, sometimes the plan is to offer the business for sale in the marketplace when the owner is ready to depart. Every day I work with business owners who are approached by a potential buyer with an offer to purchase the business. This is an ideal situation for many business owners, but only about 1 in 5 businesses that are offered up for sale actually ever sell. Of all the strategies for transferring your business, this is the least predictable and most out of your control. It's a combination of luck and timing, really. Okay, let's see here. It's important to remember that every strategy has tax or financial consequences. The key is to focus on the strategies that accomplish your desired results, and then look for ways to minimize the tax cost where possible. If you sell your business to anyone during your lifetime, you will likely recognize a capital gain, if you're lucky, right? If you own the business for longer than 1 year, that is known as a long-term capital gain. Your basis in the business is the money you invested in it over time, and that portion is not taxable to you, as you are merely recouping that, that which you paid in. But most of the time, a business has a very low basis. Mostly your own efforts are what's invested, and therefore most of the sales price is a capital gain. So in many cases, the capital gain is substantial, and we look for ways to minimize the tax burden by deferring the gain when it is recognized. There's several ways to do this. I'll list 2 common ways, that especially today in today's low interest rate environment. You can sell the business with installment obligation, which is basically deferring recognizing the gain until each payment is received. Or you can use a technique called a charitable remainder trust. We'll call it a CRT. As a way to sell your business, but spread the gain out over many years or your lifetime, while the CRT pays you an income stream. This strategy also provides a sizable upfront income tax deduction, which can be real valuable in some cases. but the income stream is taxable to you. The CRT is a very popular technique for selling any highly appreciated business, and it's been done for decades. We would generally explore this option for most clients who are selling a business to an outside third party. If you're gifting business interest to your heirs during your lifetime, you will not have to recognize any taxable gain. The basis that you have in the business would be transferred over with a gift. However, gifts of large amounts are taxable to that person making the gift. And this can be complex, and is an area where our advanced planning strategies can significantly help. The highest tax that we currently have in the law is known as the estate and gift tax, but is also the most avoidable tax through careful planning, well in advance. That's the proactiveness. If you have a business of significant value, we would work with you to keep control as much control as desired. Maximize income as needed. Protect your family from a potential devastating estate tax liability. And this is fairly complex estate planning, but something we often explore for successful business owners daily, really. Okay, so steps you can take now. Again, this program is not designed to answer all your questions, but rather to just get you start thinking and asking the right questions to put a plan in place. So what can you do? What can I start with? I'd recommend starting with getting real clarity on your own goals and what outcome you want to see, based on the demographic and the makeup of your family and your employees and your partners. If you have other owners involved, get everyone together to plan. No plan should be put in place without first recognizing what is most important outcome to everyone. Next, get clarity on the value of the business. Take the emotion out of it. Get an independent, informal valuation. That gives you the framework, the beginning of the framework for the plan. That's actually something that we do for our clients at no cost, which is an interesting little benefit we offer. After you have finalized your strategy, it's crucial to put this plan, no matter what. It has to be in writing. So the best laid plans do not happen without putting them down on paper or getting all parties involved to agree, and most importantly, sign. I can't tell you how many times I've seen operating agreements, buy-sell agreements, business succession plans that are not signed. I mean, you have them, but if they're not signed and executed, then they're not there. There are several different types of succession agreements. You'll need to determine which is right for your situation. And all of you folks I'm speaking with today, I mean, I'm sure you're really good at your professions. So the best way to do this with business succession is working with someone like us at Fellows, because we do this every day, and this is something that we do well. All right, so we've covered a lot in a short period of time, and I hope it wasn't too dry. I hope nobody's sleeping. But how do you put all these pieces together? And really, at the end of the day, it's not just us. We end up working as part of a team, and typically we'll quarterback that team. It's working with the client, understanding what their goals are, really understanding their family and the makeup of that. We spend a lot of time doing that. It's us, their financial professional. Then often we'll work with your bankers, your tax advisors, and your attorneys. And at the end of the day, we simply take very complex planning and break it down so you can understand it and get it to a form where you can take action so it protects your business and your family. And that's most important. A lot of folks, they'll get paralyzed with so much data and analysis and decisions that they just can't make a decision. So they just throw their hands up in the air and nothing happens. And that's just as bad as not planning at all. So we try to take this information and parse it down so folks can take action. And with that, that's the actual presentation and overview. But I'm looking forward to helping with some questions, if anybody has any.
If you have any questions, you can feel free to unmute yourself or type the question in the chat box.
I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing with the computer, so there's either no questions or I'm not reading them or I'm not hearing them. Either one could be possible.
seeing any. I'm not seeing any in the chat at the moment.
Maria, I'd like to ask one. We've had people, business owners come to us time to time trying to figure out how to get the right advice. How do they find a person like you, or how do they find advisors? Do they go through attorneys? Do they go through financial institutions? Do they go through their credit union? What's the best way to really find competent and good advice?
It's a good question, and it's interesting that Joe, you say that folks come to you asking for this. So I imagine they would. I mean, you'd probably be a great resource for this. Typically, what I would say was, one of the things we spend most of our time doing is proactively wrestling down very busy, successful people a couple times a year to help them, pulling them away from their business to get them to focus on this. Because if we're not that thorn in their side, it rarely gets done. So to hear that folks are actually asking you about it is awesome. But there's attorneys, but it's usually going to start with folks like us, because a lot of times we'll quarterback it and bring everything together with the attorneys and the CPAs. But it's a myriad of all those. I mean, if it starts with the accountant, usually they bring in the financial professional, the attorneys. If it starts with the attorney, they'll bring in the other players. But folks asking you is great. So you having people like us, in your quiver is probably the best way to go. Folks call us, it's for sure, but we get referrals. That's how we get all of our business. But most of the time we proactively have to, get folks to stick to the plan because they're busy. They get caught up. Next thing you know, 3 years has passed.
Great.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And we did have a question in the chat asking specifically, how does one go about finding an interested local buyer for their accounting practice?
That's a good question. I have a couple friends that are business brokers. And, it's with that, because we acquire businesses like ours all the time. And in doing that, we have to network for that. So just like we network for business and clients, we actually network for, I would recommend, just picking up the phone and calling someone. If you're at the point of actually doing that, maybe start asking around if you're part of an association, I think it's the Virginia Association of CPAs, things like that. Just figuring out ways to get yourself out there and asking, do you happen to know of anybody in our, set up and you have to define the mileage. Say, okay, anyone within 15 miles of me or 100 miles of me, I'd like to know if you know anybody that's might be interested in purchasing a practice that has a demographic like mine. So it's really it's finding the right places to search and networking, just like you do at the chamber.
Okay, we've got another question. Someone asked, valuation of your business is only the bottom line of your last 3 years of annual income. Isn't that right? Their accounting firm presented them with that fact and asking if you agree with that.
That's pretty specific. So it's all over the map. Like the way you would value my business is going to be different than the way you would value other businesses. Depends on what industry you're in. It really comes down to industry. Technology there's rules of thumb, but then there's all different types of technology businesses, and they value differently. There's software businesses that value differently, services businesses that value differently. So that's very specific. At the last 3 years of annual income, it's possible. It depends on. I would have to know more about your business to tell you if that's correct or not. But if your accounting firm presented that, then they would probably know better than I would at this point.
Next question is, are there special things to be aware of with COVID as buyers are very hesitant?
I'd ask a clarifying question. Like, are there special things to be aware of with COVID as buyers are very hesitant, buyers of businesses? I guess it depends on the industry and how affected. So that's a good question. I think if I understand the question right, is your business value better or worse because of COVID? I think. And if that's the case, then this may not be a great time to sell. you might want to wait until you recover some. I'll give another quick example, and I hope I'm on the right track. If this is not what you asked, then tell me. I'll give another good example. Folks that try to sell a government contracting company, and I'm generalizing, there's lots of different government contracts. But what we saw a couple of years ago with the government shutdowns, it really affected some of their businesses. They had to put off, selling a portion or all of their business. And then it worked out, time passed, they recovered, and it worked out. So if that's what was your question, I'd say if you're looking to sell and COVID's actually helped a lot of businesses, and it's hurt a lot of businesses. So it's been very interesting. It's been a very interesting time. And so depending on how it affected that business would be my answer to that question. I hope that helps.
Any other questions? Again, feel free to unmute if you'd like, or type it in the chat. Anyone? If there aren't any other questions, I'm going to turn it over to Carrie.
All right, well, thought it'd be fun to end by raffling off some gift cards to local Alexandria restaurants, chamber member restaurants. So I used a randomization tool to choose 3 winners, and hope I'll email you the gift card info. Use it however you like. Christine, I hope I say it right. Christine Corker, Barbecue Barrel, Mary Lee Anderson, Cafe 44. That's exciting. And then Chadwick's for Connie Dale. So I'll email those gift cards and enjoy. And thank you, everyone. Dennis, wanna conclude?
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody attending. And again, Carrie and Maria and Joe, thank you all for really supporting this event. Blake, excellent presentation. I appreciate all the insights, and I think people really appreciated that very much. So I guess with no other questions, I guess we can probably sign off. But everybody stay well, and we'll hope to see you maybe again in some other future webinars that we may hold. So you all have a great day, and again, my thanks for joining, and my thanks to the chamber as well. So have a good day.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Blake.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.